Do you usually disclose your diagnosis in social situations?
Yes, I see no reason to hide it. It's part of who I am. It's part of who you are, just like race, your gender, your sexual orientation, ethnicity, anything like that. It's the same thing.
How soon into the interaction do you disclose?
Depends on the circumstances, depends on the situation. I mean, I don't wear a sign that says I'm autistic, but if it comes up naturally in conversation,
Mm-hmm.
so I think it's just, you have to figure that out as you go.
So, what kinds of responses do you get now?
Most people understand because I think autism has become so prevalent in society and there's so much going on with it in the media and entertainment. Most people understand what autism is, that they don't have to be like, oh, I've never heard of it. I think most people I find do know what autism is and they have some experience. Although a lot of people have misconceptions.
Mm-hmm. What are some of those common misconceptions that you come across?
So many people will say, but you're not like Temple Grandin. And the idea that every autistic person is Temple Grandin because she was the first well known person being on the spectrum. And they're like, I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not like Temple Grandin. She's one person. She's not the template of all autistics. And I think that's something I've noticed other autistics go through as well. So I think that that's one example. I've had people say, you don't look autistic. I don't know what looking autistic means. I've had people say, but you talk and you're bright. I'm like, okay, autism isn't an intellectual disability. So I think there's a misconception there that sometimes people think autism might have something to do with intelligence, which it doesn't, obviously. We have very bright autistics and very not so bright autistics. Like anything else, autism runs the spectrum of intelligence.
Yeah. So, going back to what you were saying about being kind of stuck between two worlds, actually, you published an article in Autism Spectrum News earlier this year talking just about this.
I'm on their editorial board after I had actually said to them that they needed self advocates on their editorial board. And then, it's one of those things where you make a suggestion and you would kind of volunteer yourself.
Well, that's great. They listened.
So they added me and they added a female on the spectrum to the editorial board to accomplish what I suggested, the fact that every autism organization or publication needs to have self advocates involved.
Right. So, your article was talking just about this, like having a brain that's, you say, half autistic and half neurotypical.
Mm.
And I thought it was interesting that you were pointing out the continuum, like the actual spectrum, that you can't look at people as being binary, neurotypical, or autistic. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. And I actually got some pushback from that in the self advocate community from people who felt that you either are autistic or you're not, and that I was wrong to suggest that there was this half in, half out. But that's how I felt, and I'm entitled to my feelings. Just that, in many situations, I've met autistic people where I've been in autistic environments, and I don't relate to these people on the spectrum for a variety of reasons. In some cases, they might have, as someone put it, more, not the word impaired, but more challenges than I do, or their social skills might be more challenging. I know one autistic in particular who has a very big problem with boundaries, and even myself and another autistic friend have commented that, even as people on the spectrum, we have a hard time with him because he's so poor about boundaries. And so, not everybody on the spectrum is going to react the same way. And so there have been times when I've been in an autistic environment and I've just felt, I don't want to, as someone told me once, I had a thing called Aspie supremacy, this idea that I was much higher functioning and that I functioned at this level where I looked down on the other people. And it wasn't intentional, but it was the way it was coming off.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And so I think that the problem is that, again, it's a wide spectrum, and you can go from somebody who is, like myself or like some of my friends, very intelligent, able to function in society, have a job, have a life, to somebody who is very limited in what they can do. They have limited communication, limited cognitive skills, and the two are very different. I once lectured somebody who considers himself an autistic leader when he said he spoke for these three girls. There was an article about a mother with three girls who were not who were in their late teens, early 20s, and they were very limited, nonverbal. they couldn't toilet themselves or feed themselves, and the mother was exasperated because she needed respite care because she had to toilet them and feed them, and it was too much for one person. And he said he had no empathy for her and said, I speak for her daughters. And I said, honestly, you don't, because you don't know what it's like to not feed or toilet yourself or be nonverbal.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that there's a big difference there when, you can be independent versus somebody who is not able to be independent.
You've been watching Autism Knows No Borders. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Also, we'd love to hear from you, so let us know what you think in the comments section. Click here to watch this interview in its entirety. You can also find us on your favorite podcast app. Tune in each week for engaging conversations of how people across the globe are inspiring change and building community. Thanks for watching. Take care.